What's going on, guys? I wanted to do a quick video. I just got back home from LA for ESL Pro League. I leave on Wednesday for Toronto to Northern Arena, which I think is one of the cooler events that we're going to be having in North America in some time. I think definitely it's a really cool timing for it just because of all the roster changes we've had, all the big questions that are up in the air. Some of these are first glimpses at lineups and new teams and everything like that. And it's also good because with all these changes, it's really hard to consider where the tier list is in terms of North American teams. I released my rankings for North America just 2 weeks ago or so, and that was met with some people disagreeing, some people agreeing. And actually, I could read those out really quick just so you have an idea of where I had teams at. So the way it worked, obviously, this is just for teams that are competing in the North American region, not just North American teams. Number one, I had SK. 2 is Liquid. 3 is Immortals. 4 is Cloud9. 5 is Optics. 6 is TSM. I think 7 is Renegades. Yep, and then 8 is NRG, 9 is Echo Fox, and 10 is CLG. And even CLG's ranking in there at the time, they only had 3 players in the roster, and that's more of like an ode to the previous CLG, just to get an idea of where these. And I wanted to do that before the rosters got released, knowing this event was coming up, because this is the first time we're going to see them competing at LAN at a tournament, which always influences the rankings more than just online matches do. So obviously a lot of cool ideas coming in. When you think about this event, there's only one storyline this event is actually missing, and that's Team Liquid's not going to be there, which sucks. Actually, I don't think Renegades isn't going to be there either. So you could say there's 2, but Liquid not being there, I think, is the big blow to see them with Pimp, to see them competing against other North American teams, other teams from the region, just to get an idea of where that change from Simple to Pimp is going to put them. Because that's the biggest question, I think, in North American region right now. But I'll throw these groups up on the board in case you guys haven't seen them, in case you guys want to follow along just as we're going. Group A, Immortals, CLG. Actually, I don't have to read them off, but there they are. And we'll start with Group A. Actually, this will be kind of cool. So what we'll do: Group A, Immortals, CLG, Energy, Synthetic. I think Immortals, the biggest thing about them is this is Zeus, his first LAN. He's playing. He's the in-game leader as well. He just came from SK/Luminosity. He was their coach for a long time, and he's coming into this now, and he's got to be a player on the professional level. He's got an in-game lead on the professional level. So all while he's trying to kind of improve in both aspects of the game, he doesn't really have a lot of time because they need to have some results. They need to play well. So that's going to be cool to watch exactly where he's at. He's looked pretty good in online, I think. He's not blowing any way with any crazy plays, but what he does do on CT sides, he's done a good job, I think, at anchoring down bomb sites. He's not going to go over and win you like 1-on-3 clutches or anything, at least not yet. We'll see if he can eventually get there. But where his level's at, he's a pretty solid player on that team. And then also the big thing is, they've had this varying peaks of performance where they're known as a team who's choked under pressure at times, collapsed certainly under high pressure moments. You think this is a team that beat Virtus Pro in a BO5 to win CEVO Gfinity. This is a team that's beaten NIP and Godsend at DreamHack Summer to win that whole event, and still they've failed to qualify for 2 majors. They failed to qualify for MLG Columbus, failed to qualify for ESL Cologne 2015, and now there's no 3rd major this year. So they've done a poor job of qualifying for the majors, which is surprising, seeing as how they've proven that they can close out big series on LAN. So will be interesting to see if this is one of those events where they do kind of have that struggle to close out, to perform in those high pressure situations as they get deeper in the bracket. Or if they're going to be able to follow through and win this event. CLG, the other North American team, or the first North American team in this lineup, they just brought in 2 new players. They have Ethan, they have Sabrosa. It's going to be their first professional tournament. They haven't looked great in this team quite yet. It's been a very short time, and especially after the break, they haven't had time to fit in. But even on top of that, this is why I don't think CLG is going to do that great. Even on top of that, they have Kuston Rifle, who hasn't looked bad in that role, but certainly is, outside of his one game at E-League, where he somehow dropped like a massive amount of kills. I forget how many it was. I think it was like mid to high 30s with the rifle. We haven't seen too much of it, seen enough of it really to pass judgment on it. Cutler's going to be on the op, where he's been pretty okay. And Hayes in-game leading, I think, is the biggest fear in terms of role changing. Is he's never been an in-game leader before, and now all of a sudden he's got to think for a professional team, he's got to call for a professional team, and he's got to outthink the opposing professional team. So I think that's going to be tough. And then from a brand new in-game leader to an old in-game leader, a legendary in-game leader in Gob B, NRG's the 3rd team in this group. Obviously, he's had fantastic tactics. He's one of those leaders who we've seen in the past has made teams better than the players' talent that they have in it. It's been a while. He's also famously couldn't make Nico work quite properly. Kind of when Nico was on this team and Gabi at the same time, Nico didn't really have this explosive style we see with him now. So he's shown some kind of weakness as an in-game leader with maybe individual stars. But I think the big thing is Tapson's been a monster for these guys. He's been a monster on LAN in the past against Tier 1 European competition. And then Peter is the one guy where we see Gabi really relying on him, focusing a lot of tactics around Peter. So I think this is going to be a good chance again to see if Peter is actually progressing within the system as a player, if this team is progressing as a team. So that's my big questions for Energy. And then Synthetic as the fourth team, I don't think there's going to be too much to worry about with them. And just so this group, I have Immortals coming out in first. I have Energy coming out in second. I think CLG and Synthetic are going to get knocked out in groups just due to some inexperience. Group B, TSM, Optic, Echo Fox, Luminosity. This is the group of death. This is an incredible group. You saw like pretty much every team was just like, man, how do we get put in this group? This sucks. Like for two of these teams, it's four professional teams essentially. But what I think is cool about this group is you have TSM, Echo Fox, and Luminosity, who were three teams who were in the EPL vote off for that wildcard spot. Echo Fox obviously got voted into the match. So did Luminosity. So we have the match that everyone wanted that never happened in TSM versus Luminosity. We'll get to see that finally. So I mean, it's not going to solve anything. Obviously, it's not like TSM will get any opportunity to get into EPL if they win it, but it will. It is maybe just a point of pride. You know, these two teams. You definitely know TSM being slighted by that. That's going to be extra motivation, and that you normally don't believe in extra motivation, but that is one of those things that I think that's a big enough event to where that will provide some kind of extra passion to the game. Obviously, that they need to solidify. The big issue with TSM right now is they need to solidify the respect they gained. They got top 4 at ECS. They've had some decent upsets, some BO3 wins there. They've had some BO1 wins against European teams. They need to solidify that now because it's not enough to just have these. You need to continue to have them. If they're going to be going in the right direction, we need to see them, have some more strong wins against North American teams. They need to get some sets won against North American teams. Because I think at ECS they did beat Cloud9 at that event, I think. Either way, they need more. That's too far gone now to where we can keep referencing that. They need to keep up that hype, need to keep joining or need to keep winning moving forward. They also brought in Relics, who they're 0-2. I think they've only played 2 maps since he's gotten there. So they're 0-2, but very talented player, showed some really good stuff at E-League with Selfless. He's got a lot of skill. This is kind of going to be learning by fire. They need to kind of fill him in quickly and get him up to speed on what they want to do. I know he flew out to the TSM house last week. So already practicing with the squad. And then the other big thing for me with TSM is they have to deepen their map pool. They are obviously very, very good on Cobble. Their biggest wins and their biggest games in terms of, they've had some close losses on Cobble as well to teams like Fnatic and SK. But they need to deepen that map pool. We need to see them expand that further. Hopefully they have a second, a third map here at this event where they can have good results in. Because if they don't, they're never going to be competing for any kind of series. Optic, I think, is a big thing as a team. They're missing Tarek. They're going to bring in Desi, which is a little bit worrying to me. Devilwalk is now gone as well. That was very short-lived. Probably the coaching change impacted that a little bit. But Desi has a play style. I'm not a huge fan of it. Not like Tarek was doing anything crazy. I think from what I remember, since he's joined, he's had like maybe one good series, 2 good maps against Cloud9 and that BO3. Tarek was kind of a monster. Other than that, I think he's been very lackluster. Still, I mean, to be fair, it's been a very short time, so we'll have to see how that progresses as he gets going, especially considering even before that, he was only streaming. He wasn't playing professionally, so he's also still got to get in the swing of things, knock some rust loose. But they're just like TSM, they're getting farther and farther away from their impressive wins over Europeans. That the BO3's over Immortals, BO1's over Astralis, BO1 over NIP. This is all becoming past history. So they need to have a good event here to keep us optimistic about Optic's future. LG, TSM LG, I went over that, the match that never happened. The real question for me with this team is how deep is the Brazilian team? I know when I tweeted out some things about the wild card, about TSM deserving to be there in terms of results more than Luminosity. Got some angry tweets from Brazilians, obviously. I know when I tweeted out my top 10 and didn't have LG in the top 10, got some more angry tweets from Brazilians. So this is a chance, just to not only prove me, because I think there's a lot of people who shared my opinion on that, but how deep is this Brazilian scene? Is LG actually able to compete with some of the best teams in North America? Are they going to be able to have an impact on this tournament? Are they going to gain any memorable wins or matches from this tournament? This is a good group to do it in. TSM and Optic, they're teams that are right in the middle of the North American scene. So it'd be strong statements if LG is able to win that. I still think they're a team that could be good in the future, but I don't think they're ready for it quite yet. I think in a few months they'll be improved. Echo Fox, obviously, biggest names and brands in North America, even on considering some of the Cloud9 and Liquid players. You have Sean, who's one of the most universally loved professional players in North America. Freakazoid, he's had his issues, but people still tend to like him very, very much. Strong player. He's looked good on Echo Fox. Shazam is a very well-known name, player, face, tweeter. You've got a lot of players here that have been in the professional scene, that have professional experience. What level are they at? What level is this team at? Because they just had, in my opinion, they had a catastrophic event at the ESCA Global Challenge, and that's another thing to keep in mind with this team. They just flew out to Poland last week on, I want to say, Wednesday or Thursday. They were in Poland for 2 days for this event. They're probably flying back tomorrow, which is Monday, and then within a day or two, they're headed straight to Toronto for this event. So maybe a little bit jet lagged, maybe just a little bit tired, under the weather, whatever it might be. But they just lost games to, I think it's oh man, what is that team's name? It's like the fourth best team in Sweden, which is not good. Well, I can't remember their name. It starts with a C. I have it here. Yes. They just lost to Crowns. Crowns is who it is. They lost to them 0-2 in a series. They lost to Alternate Attacks as well. Both of those are teams I feel they should beat. And I think that's a disaster. They end 3rd to 4th, but I think that's an event they probably should have looked at winning. Especially, considering Crown is, like I said, 4th best team. They beat Chiefs, who's like the 3rd best team from the Oceanic, I'm sure that's even debatable to Oceanic and analysts. I don't know the scene that detailed, so don't crucify me if you're from the region. And they beat Ents, which is good. Those were in BO1s. But not only getting 3rd, 4th there, I think is not good for this team. So what level are they at? Because they have this tendency, even against Crowns, there was a player, I forget his name, not going to look that one up, that dropped like 42 kills on him in a map on Dust 2. And then, they're also the team at E-League. Duncan tweeted it out, Thorin, and said that this Echo Fox team has made certain players look like gods. Where World Edit had like the most, like he set like 5 LAN records in one match against them. So very hot, very cold. My next question about this team is on LAN. They just don't seem to have all the firepower they need. I still have questions about Roka performing at tournaments. Rix, who I think is a pretty decent, okay player, that I think he's improved while he's been on Echo Fox. Still have questions if he's going to be able to be a huge impact player for him. Shazam has the ability, but I think his role, the style of opping that Sean has him doing, isn't that kind of carry, isn't that kind of super high impact like opping. It's not that flashy stuff. He has him more playing farther back. He's been fantastic, and when he's had his supportive op, I think the big thing is Shazam gets unleashed more when he's in those clutch situations and he has a little bit more freedom. But in tactics, he's generally not the one providing the impetus, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So in Group B, I have TSM and Optic getting out. I think actually TSM is going to get first, simply because of Tarek not being there and Desi being in. I think that's a lot of roster changes for one team to go through in that time. So I'm going to take TSM first in this group, Optic second. Don't be surprised if Echo Fox Luminosity upset somebody. Don't be surprised if TSM Optic, they flip and it's Optic first, TSM second. I think this is like the most competitive group of all 4, obviously. Group C, Cloud9, Rogue, Complexity, Ace. Hang on, I need a drink of water. Excuse me. Group... Oh, I just lost where I was. Oh, there I am. Cloud9, Rogue, Complexity, Ace. Cloud9, the big story about this, guys, is how dominant they've been in the EPL so far. They're 10-0. They're the teams in their wins, their opponents are only averaging 8 rounds when Cloud9 wins the game. So that's insane. They're just strictly dominating. They've been 15-3 since Automatic joined the roster. They've had 18 games and they're 15-3. I think the biggest thing, the coolest thing about Cloud9 to me, because every time I've talked about them in the past, has been, is nothing going to show up? Is Shroud going to show up? Are these players that they need to do well going to do well? And that narrative has shifted. I don't think it's nothing and Shroud is the face of the team anymore. I think Stewie's firmly taken over control of this team. He is that young star. He is the future of this team. I think he's the face of it. He's now doing a lot of the calling as well, although they have mentioned that their calling is spread out across the team, but I'm not sure I entirely believe all that. I think primarily it's still Stewie, and then Nothing is like a secondary caller. But Stewie's playing at an insane level at the moment. I think he's leading ADR, he's leading frags per round, he's leading all these different stats for EPL. And they're still actually tactically outplaying teams. That's not just the thing. It's not just brute forcing their way in or Stewie carrying them. They have some very interesting calls that have been really confounding teams. I know tactically they fully outplayed Liquid at the start of EPL this season. Automatic coming in, they've looked fantastic. Obviously, like I said, 15-3. He's been a great source of what they need on this team, which is a little bit more passive play, which is a little bit more of just filling your role and excelling in your role instead of trying to do too much. And Automatic fills that perfectly. The next big storyline for this team coming in is, are they still the eternal disappointment? Because there have been lands in the past that they've gone in with great online results, where they have looked fantastic, and they've just kind of shit the bed. They didn't even qualify for the last major, which is atrocious for a team that's been at the top of North American scene. That was a big kick in the gut, I think, to a lot of people and to them themselves. So are they still going to be that disappointment? Because they're actually, at this point, you have to have them with Liquid not at this tournament as well. You have to have these guys as one of the favorites to win the whole event, at least getting to the finals. And actually, despite that, I think not winning this event, I think for this team would not be a disaster, but it would be not good, I guess we'll say. I mean, I don't think it's like the end of the world for them, but I think when they look at the lineups and they say, if we don't win this considering how well we're playing, that's a bit fucked up. So hopefully they do well. Certainly they should win the event. Rogue. This is a new team put together. It's a team of leftover players from European squads. They've got Tensky, who's formerly of Dignitas. They have Maniac, who is a Titan player. He was a coach in Envy, and actually at the end of his reign in Titan, at the end of his time in Titan, he was playing very, very well against Tier 1 European teams. I thought he was very impressive, and that's actually a long, long time ago. But that was actually like a year ago, actually. So crazy. But we'll see what level he's at. He hasn't been playing professionally for some time, so I don't think he's going to be at that level. Cadian, he ranked for TSM at E-League. He also lost to Giuliano in a 1v1. But he was actually very impressive with TSM at E-League. So, I think these are players that have kind of been the leftovers to a certain degree. We'll see what they can do. This is their second LAN together. I don't think they have any massive expectations, but they should certainly be able to get out of this group. Which is the other two teams are Complexity and Ace, so they should have no problem getting out of this group. From there, it will be interesting to see who they get paired up with in the bracket stage. I think Cloud9's going to get out first, obviously. I think Rogue's going to get out second. And then Complexity, UK players, they still haven't shown up. There was a lot of hype around these guys, Def and Surreal. I know Warden, the coach, was telling me really, really good things about these guys. I still haven't seen it yet. They've had some flashes here and there, but I'm not even sure they've put together whole matches quite yet against some of the best teams. So, I mean, who's going to be the impact player for them? Who's the star? Because it was supposed to be the UK players, and if it's not going to be, who will it be? Uber has joined this team. We'll see what he's going to do outside of that selfless squad that's been his home forever. Whitmer as an in-game leader, Whitmer as a player. These guys, there's still so many question marks about this team. It is kind of just like, it is just kind of, who's going to show up? What are we going to see out of them? Because they haven't given us anything quite yet. So I don't have a lot of hope for them. The fourth team is Ace. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not even entirely sure what their roster is going to be because they don't have a full roster on HLTV.org. On ESCA, they're 0-1 in ESCA main. Their roster is Effie's, PL1, Tiz, Gore, and Pex. I just spoke to Pex. He's not even going to be at the event, so I'm assuming it's going to be a guy named Vez step in, who's played with Ace Gaming in the past, who's been kind of a staple of these kind of Canadian rosters for some time. But don't expect much out of them. They do kind of just get very much beaten up. One could almost say dumpstered by professional teams. No offense to the guys on Ace Gaming. And then, where's that sheet? There it is. For Group D, so just to make sure everyone knows, Group C, Cloud9 number 1, Rogue number 2. Group D is Team X, which is now Heroic, Splice, Selfless, and Winterfox. Obviously, in Heroic, they just had they've had good form in Europe with some online results. Actually, let me find this piece of paper that I just set aside. Am I going to be able to find it? There it is. They've had good form in Europe recently. Actually, as I say that, I know they're like 3-7 in EPL. But even outside of that, they did for the Starlighter qualifier. They 2-0'd FaZe. They 16-0'd them, 16-4 in the second map. They beat Hellraisers 2-0. They beat the old Godsent lineup 2-1. So they've done pretty well there in those Starlighter qualifiers. They're not doing great in EPL 3-7, but then they just won Powerland, which is a Danish event that just came on where that just took place this week, and they just won it today, I believe. So they 2-1 Dignitas, they 2-1 Astralis to win that event. Two very, very good wins. So they're a team that's on the rise, that's had some good results. They're going to be coming into this with plenty of confidence. On top of that, Glaive was the stand-in for Astralis at ESL 1 Cologne at the Major, and he was fantastic for them, I thought. I think he played great, so very, very strong on land against the best teams in the world. So he should maybe, at least especially in this group, have a little bit of a field day. So I have them going out first in the group. And then the next three is a little bit, this is going to be competitive for this. It's like the complete opposite of competitive nature of Group B, because Group B, we know kind of what level everyone's at, and we just don't know which of them is going to show up at this event, because any of those 4 teams in Group B could make it out. It's the same for Group D. Any of the 3 teams outside of Heroic can make it out. Or Heroic's going to get out in first, but any of those other 3 teams can make it out in second. But it's kind of like figuring out who's not the worst. Once again, no offense to the teams. It's just, for the most part, we haven't really seen much of these teams play. Selfless, Splice, Winterfox, these guys have entirely new lineups. So maybe it's not fair for me to say who's not the worst, but kind of get the idea. Splice, obviously, they're the guys. They brought in they brought in Crucial, who I've been told by Henry G is going to be an incredible player. We've seen some glimpses of it in EPL and online play. They also brought in Machine Gun, who's not there. He's the Mongolian player who was from the Mongols, who had a fantastic event in Taipei, got beat up a little bit in Katowice, and that was the last we've heard of him. Now he's going to be in this lineup. He won't be at Northern Arena, unfortunately. His visa was accepted, and I think he gets in next week after this event. But there's still going to be hype around Crucial. For me, individually, I'm still hyped about Davies' development as an individual player. They also brought in Asilian, who's formerly of Team X, who was SK before that. So, they have some international talent now brought in. And this team can do some damage. We just haven't seen much of them yet. They're not doing great in EPL. They're 1-3, and their only win is against Complexity. They got beat up really badly by Immortals as well, 4-16 and 7-16. But overall, I still don't think we haven't seen enough of this team. And obviously, with massive changes to this roster, with massive language barriers, this team is going to have to show us some cool things here at this event. I think this is a good opportunity for them, because the other 2 teams that they're going to be facing for this numbers 2 spot are entirely beatable. Selfless, basically an entirely new lineup, probably the most inexperienced team we have at this in the professional divisions. They just lost Relics, who was kind of their biggest star player, their biggest reason for hope. They have Mitch and Nifty, who are kind of like the 2 next players they believe to be the next stars of this squad. Which will be interesting to see. Those guys need to keep developing. At the moment, this Selfless team has actually done if you look at their old roster, which was Enemy, where they had Kusta, they had Uber, they had Mainline, they had Relics. This team has turned into like a great farm system team for some other invite teams. Kusta is on CLG right now. Relics just gets picked up by TSM. Uber is in Complexity. They're not like blowing the scene up, but they're players who are big role players for some of these teams, and Relics could even be a star. So that's kind of where Selfless is at. They're still in the stage where they're evaluating their 5 players that they put together. Winterfox, don't call them Australian. I've gotten yelled at for that. Call them Oceanic. This is a team that Zuzi and Dexter, to me, are their 2 big players that I want to see kind of become stars. They're the ones that have a lot of hope, I think, from the Australian region, if I remember my conversations from earlier this year with the Australian analysts. But they're also like a big hope in the sense that the Australian scene and the Oceanic scene wants to see this team kind of get its fair shake, because for the long time they've been rooting for Renegades, rooting for Vox Seminor, rooting for that whole lineup, the sponge side of that scene, to do really well. And they're the only team that's had the opportunity to really come across, live in North America, get a practice in these crazy conditions, get a house out here, practice against the Tier 1 teams. And they haven't shown great improvement. They haven't had any crazy results. So the Oceanic scene is really starting to get a little bit impatient with them, I feel like. So this is the next best team that they've put together. And definitely Zuzi and Dexter, the guys to watch out for on this team as the next Oceanic prospects. So, I mean, I have Team X getting out of this one. And after that, of the other three, I think it's really between Winter Fox and Splice. I'm going to take Winter Fox, just to give the Oceanic scene some love, but certainly it's all up in the air with those three teams. And yeah, those are the big storylines. So just to recap, Immortals and NRG getting out in Group A, TSM and Optic in Group B, Cloud9 and Rogue in Group C, Team X and Winter Fox, or excuse me, Heroic and Winter Fox in Group D are my picks out of these groups. But definitely tune in. There's going to be a lot of questions answered at this event. And it's going to be really sick. There are going to be a lot of interesting matchups, especially when we get to the group stage. It's going to be great. After this, we're all going to have a much better understanding of where all these teams and all the talent lies in North America. So can't wait for that, and hope to see you guys there. If not, hope to see you tuning in. I'll be there the whole event, tweeting out and all that fun stuff. Yeah, it'll be a fun event. Make sure you guys tune in.